It also disseminates these results through training, publications, and public programs. So who benefits from the work of the NCRG? Well, without question, gaming companies, such as my former company, deeply value the organization, its mission, and the tools that we develop to help address gambling disorders and to promote, inside of our facilities, responsible gambling. As a casino executive for 3 decades, I can say unequivocally that the gaming industry is committed to ensuring that casino patrons gamble responsibly and to providing support for those who cannot. Though research indicates that only a small fraction of the U.S. population, adult population, approximately 1%, struggles with pathological gambling, pathological gambling is something that we take very seriously because it affects our patrons, and it affects our employees, and it affects our communities. To date, the industry, which includes casino companies and equipment manufacturers such as International Game Technology, where I'm chairman, and other vendors, have committed $22 million to the NCRG for research. This represents an unprecedented amount of private support for research on gambling disorders. In addition to supporting the NCRG with funds for research, gaming companies, as well as the industry as a whole, have implemented inside their facilities rigorous responsible gaming programs. In order to ensure that these programs are effective, the casinos have, whenever possible, used research to guide the way, and much of the research that is available has been made possible by the support of the NCRG. And I would say that here in Ohio, because we've now been at this for over 15 years, you should expect state-of-the-art responsible gaming programs inside the 4 casinos that open up in this state in the next couple of years. After gaming companies, it is certain that clinicians also benefit greatly from the work and the research of the NCRG. Few people realize that there is currently almost no treatment standard for pathological gambling. However, research supported by the NCRG has led to new instruments for accurately measuring, screening, and diagnosing the disorder, and it has provided clinicians with a greater understanding of the nature of pathological gambling. Just yesterday, a group of us that have been here this week hosted a treatment provider workshop here in Cleveland for nearly 150 clinicians and healthcare providers. We updated them on the latest research and provided guidance about common challenges that they may face in treating those with gambling problems. We also met with representatives of the Brecksville Gaming Treatment Program, the first clinical treatment center for disordered gambling in the country, in fact, to discuss how we can work together, a program founded by a pioneer in the treatment of responsible gambling, Robert Custer. The work of the NCRG is also vitally important to regulators and legislators. Research supported by the organization has informed public policy in gaming jurisdictions across the company. For example, because we have accurately identified the prevalence rate of pathological gambling, elected officials have been able to appropriately design and allocate funding for prevention programs in their communities. And in Ohio, you probably have one of the most robust statutes for funding prevention programs for your communities. In addition, tools made available through the NCRG, which I'll discuss later in more detail, have further helped policymakers reduce gambling-related harms among their constituents. Policymakers here in Ohio have an opportunity, I think, to survey the landscape of gambling policies implemented in the 13 other commercial jurisdictions throughout this country. And you can choose from the best of the collection of policies and programs and tailor them to meet the needs of your citizens. One example, I think, of a particularly effective program is called self-exclusion, which was first established in Missouri with great success. Essentially, people who sense that they have a gambling problem can elect to exclude themselves from their local casino or from all casinos. And they are no longer allowed on the premises, and they do not receive any promotional mailings, and their families advised, and there's lots of safeguards to set up if they're simply not safe inside of a casino for whatever their condition may be. Research supported by the NCRG suggests that these programs can work very well. Finally, researchers in the field of gambling disorders greatly value the contributions of NCRG because it supports their field. Many researchers would tell you that funding for gambling research from federal or charitable entities has diminished in recent years, and as a result, the NCRG is now the primary source of support for serious study on gambling disorders. Yesterday, the NCRG also met with representatives from the Cleveland Clinic to explore how we might work together with them to investigate this issue. Many of you are likely wondering what research has indicated about the introduction of casino gambling into communities like Cleveland. Let me begin by addressing the question that I raised earlier, questions that I'm sure are on the minds of many people in Cleveland. First, how is the prevalence rate of pathological gambling affected when commercial gambling takes root into a community? When you open your first casino here, or in Columbus, or in Cincinnati, or in Toledo. Numerous news reports have reported, I think misleadingly, that the rates of pathological gambling will double the moment those casinos open their doors. That's not accurate data. More recent research indicates that there will be an impact. When a casino opens, a community may experience a brief jump in the prevalence of gambling disorders. But what we've established over time by looking at other communities in many of these other states is that that prevalence rate returns to a rate comparable to what existed prior to the introduction of the casino. And in effect, what happens, most people adapt to it. There's sort of a brief love affair with this when it first opens up. People are entranced by the lights, by the sound of the money coming out of the machine, by winning a blackjack hand or whatever it may be, but they'll eventually adapt to it and understand that this is a form of recreation and they have to measure their involvement with it. So what is the current prevalence rate of pathological gambling? I'm sure it's here in Cleveland, it's the same as it is everywhere else. As I mentioned previously, it's about 1% of the adult population that struggles with the disorder, a number that's remained steady now for the past 3 decades. But while that number is low, it is important to note that pathological gambling is a very debilitating disorder. So one pathological gambler is one too many, and that's why it's essential for gaming communities to work together to address this issue proactively. Secondly, how does the casino gaming impact the social fabric of a community? Those who oppose gaming expansion often attempt to connect casinos to a variety of social ills, from crime and bankruptcy to divorce and suicide. So far, research has discredited any link between crime and casinos. A study published in 2005 in the Gaming Research and Review Journal investigated the impact of Detroit's new casinos on crime in that community. The total crime index figures demonstrated that in the 3 years following casino development in the city of Detroit, crime did not escalate. In addition, there was no evidence indicating that the volume of crime increased when the casinos opened. Turning to bankruptcy, a 2007 study conducted by the American Bankruptcy Institute found that the 2 states where casino gaming is most prevalent, Nevada and New Jersey, are not ranked in the top echelon in any of the categories that determine relative bankruptcy rates. In fact, Tennessee and Georgia, 2 states that do not have any casino gaming, had the highest number of bankruptcies by household per consumer filing.